I took the night shift for the extra $2 an hour. I thought it was easy money for doing nothing. I was wrong. Here are 3 true night shift horror stories that made people quit the very next day. I was 19 and needed rent money, so I took the graveyard shift at a Shell station off Highway 52. The job was simple: 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Restock shelves, clean the coffee machine, ring up the occasional trucker or drunk college kid buying energy drinks. Most nights, I'd see maybe 15 customers total. The rest of the time, I just sat behind the counter watching security monitors and scrolling my phone. The station was surrounded by farmland, no other buildings for 3 miles in either direction. During the day, you could see cornfields. At night, it was just darkness beyond the parking lot lights. I'd been working there about 2 months when I started noticing the same car, a white Honda Civic. It would pull up to the far pump around 3 a.m., sit there for exactly 4 minutes, then leave without pumping gas. This happened 3 nights in a row. Same car, same pump, same 4 minutes. I mentioned it to my manager during shift change. He shrugged and said people do that sometimes, fall asleep, change their mind, whatever. On the 4th night, the car pulled up again, 3:06 a.m. I watched it on the monitor. The engine was running, headlights off, just sitting there at pump number 6. I decided to go outside and check on them. Maybe they needed help. I stepped out into the cold September air and started walking toward the pump. As I got closer, I could see someone in the driver's seat. The windows were tinted, but I could make out the silhouette. I knocked on the window. No response. I knocked again, harder this time. The person inside didn't move, didn't turn their head, just sat there facing forward. I felt something cold move through my chest. This wasn't right. I stepped back and returned to the store, watched the monitor. At exactly 3:10 a.m., the car reversed, turned, and drove out of the lot, same as the other nights. I pulled up the security footage from the previous nights, watched them back to back. Same car, same pump, same 4 minutes. But here's what made my skin go cold. On the 2nd night, when the car drove away, I noticed something I'd missed before. There was a second person in the back seat, just sitting there, completely still. On the 3rd night, there were 2 people in the back seat. Tonight, there had been 3. I called the police, gave them the license plate. They said they'd send someone to check it out, but it would be at least 30 minutes. The officer arrived around 4 a.m. I showed him the footage. He watched it 3 times, asked me to email him the files. He took down my information and said he'd follow up. 2 days later, he called me. The license plate came back to a white Honda Civic. Registered owner was a woman named Patricia Hernandez. She'd been reported missing 6 weeks earlier. Her car was found abandoned in a Walmart parking lot in the next county, empty. No signs of struggle. They never found her. The officer asked me if the car had come back since. I told him no, and it never did. But every night for the next 3 weeks, I'd stare at that pump at 3 a.m., waiting. I quit after that. Some people asked me why I'd leave a job over a weird customer, but they didn't see what I saw on that footage when I zoomed in. The people in the back seat weren't sitting, they were slumped, and in the freeze frame, just for a second, you could see the driver's face reflected in the rearview mirror. No expression, eyes open, not blinking, just staring straight ahead into nothing. Have you ever worked a night shift and felt like you weren't alone? Let me know in the comments. All right, story number 2. This story comes from a guy named Marcus, who worked as a night custodian at St. Luke's Medical Center in Pittsburgh. He was 24, putting himself through community college, and the overnight custodian job paid $15 an hour. His shift ran from midnight to 8 a.m. Most of the work was straightforward: mop the hallways, empty the trash, sanitize the waiting rooms. The hospital had 4 floors above ground and 2 basement levels. B1 was for storage and laundry. B2 was for the morgue and old medical records. Marcus had been working there for 6 months without incident. He'd go floor by floor, starting at the top and working his way down. The 4th floor was pediatrics, 3rd floor was surgical, 2nd floor was ICU, 1st floor was emergency and intake. Then he'd head to the basement levels. B1 never bothered him. Bright lights, washing machines running, sometimes a night nurse would be down there grabbing clean linens. But B2 was different. The lights down there were old. Half of them didn't work. The ones that did flickered constantly with this electrical buzzing sound that made your teeth hurt. The morgue was at the end of a long hallway. Marcus never had to go in there. His job was just to mop the hallway and empty the trash cans outside the records room. It was a Tuesday in October when Marcus noticed the door. There was a door at the very end of the B2 hallway that he'd never paid attention to before. It was unmarked, just plain gray metal, no window, no sign. He'd mopped past it 100 times and never really looked at it. But that night, something was different. The door was open. Not wide open, just cracked about 6 inches. And there was a smell coming from inside. Not like death or decay. It smelled like wet concrete and old paper. Marcus stopped mopping. He stood there looking at that open door. He knew he should just close it and keep working, but something made him walk closer. He pushed the door open wider. Inside was a staircase going down. The stairs were concrete and covered in dust like nobody had used them in years. There was no light switch that Marcus could see, just darkness leading down. He pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark and hit the stairs about 10 feet down before the angle made it impossible to see further. Marcus knew there wasn't supposed to be a B3 level. He'd seen the hospital blueprints in the maintenance office. 2 basement floors, that was it. But here was a staircase going down to something. He started down the stairs. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. The air got colder with each step. His breath came out in clouds. At the bottom of the stairs was another door. This one was wooden and looked old, really old. The wood was dark and warped. There was a small window at eye level covered in wire mesh and grime. Marcus wiped the grime away with his sleeve and looked through. On the other side was a room, a large room with a ceiling so low he'd have to duck to walk through it. The room was full of hospital beds, old hospital beds with metal frames and thin mattresses. There had to be 30 of them, all lined up in rows, and on every bed was a sheet, pulled up, covering something underneath. Marcus's hand was on the door handle when he noticed something that made him freeze. One of the sheets was moving, just slightly, rising and falling, like something underneath was breathing. He watched it for 10 seconds, 15. The movement was steady, in and out, in and out. Then a second sheet started moving, then a third. He counted 7 sheets moving in total, all breathing at the same rhythm, slow and deep. Marcus took his hand off the door handle. He backed up one step, then another. That's when he heard it, a sound coming from behind the door, a wet sound, like someone smacking their lips. Then a voice, raspy and quiet. It said, "Are you here for rounds?" Marcus ran. He didn't close the door behind him. He ran up those concrete stairs, taking them two at a time. His mop and bucket were still in the hallway where he'd left them. He grabbed them and went straight to the elevator, rode it to the first floor, walked to his supervisor's office and quit on the spot. Didn't give 2 weeks' notice, didn't explain, just turned in his ID badge and left. His supervisor called him the next day asking what happened. Marcus told him about the stairs and the room and the breathing sheets. There was silence on the phone. Then his supervisor said, "There is no third basement level. I've worked here 19 years. I've seen the original construction documents. That staircase doesn't exist." Marcus never went back, but he did some research. Turns out St. Luke's Medical Center was built in 1924 on the site of an old tuberculosis sanatorium. The sanatorium was supposed to have been filled in with concrete when they built the hospital. Supposed to have been. Have you ever heard breathing where there shouldn't be any? Comment below. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button. All right, final story.
This last story is from a woman named Jennifer. She worked as an overnight security guard at a 15-story office building in downtown Seattle. The building was mostly tech companies and law firms. During the day, there were hundreds of people working there. At night, it was just Jennifer and the building. Her job was simple: sit at the front desk in the lobby, monitor the security cameras, do 2 walking patrols per shift, one at 2 a.m. and one at 5 a.m. She'd worked there for 8 months, and it was the easiest job she'd ever had. The building had 62 cameras total: lobby, stairwells, elevators, and 1 camera on each floor covering the main hallway. Jennifer had 4 monitors at her desk showing different camera feeds. She could cycle through them or watch them all at once. Most nights, nothing happened. She'd watch Netflix on her phone, read books, scroll social media. Around 1 a.m., she'd make her rounds, check that all the doors were locked, make sure no homeless people had gotten into the stairwells. Then back to the desk until 5 a.m., when she'd do it again. It was a Wednesday in November when Jennifer noticed something off. She was watching the camera feeds like normal when she saw movement on the 8th floor. Just a flicker on the edge of the frame. She rewound the footage, watched it again. There, someone walked past the camera, just for a second. A person in dark clothing moving quickly from left to right across the hallway. Jennifer checked the sign-in log. Nobody had entered the building since 6 p.m. when the last employee left. She checked the badge scanner records. No activity. She called up to the 8th floor on the building phone. It rang 15 times. No answer. Jennifer grabbed her flashlight and radio and took the elevator to 8. The doors opened with a ding that echoed down the empty hallway. She stepped out. The floor was dark except for the emergency exit lights and a few desk lamps that people had left on. She walked slowly down the main corridor, checking offices as she went. Empty. All of them. She reached the end of the hallway where the camera had caught the movement. Nothing. No one there. She was about to head back to the elevator when she noticed something. The door to the stairwell was propped open with a small wooden wedge. That door was supposed to be closed. It was a fire door. It automatically locked from the stairwell side. The only way to prop it open was from the inside. Jennifer removed the wedge. The door swung shut with a heavy click. She went back to the lobby, checked the cameras again. Nothing. She made a note in the incident log and tried to forget about it. But 20 minutes later, she saw movement again, this time on the 12th floor. Same thing, a dark figure moving quickly across the camera frame. She rewound it, watched it 3 times. The person was wearing all black, hood up, face not visible, moving with purpose. Jennifer's heart started pounding. She picked up the radio and called the police non-emergency line, explained the situation. They said they'd send an officer, but it might be 45 minutes. She said that was fine. She wasn't going up there alone this time. While she waited for the police, Jennifer cycled through all the camera feeds. Lobby clear, stairwells clear, elevators clear, floors 1 through 7 clear, 8 through 15 clear. Everything looked normal. Then she checked the 8th floor again. The stairwell door was propped open. Same wooden wedge, same door.
She'd removed that wedge 20 minutes ago. She was staring at the monitor when she saw movement on the 6th floor, then the 10th, then the 3rd. Different floors, all at the same time. Dark figures walking past cameras, moving in the same direction, all heading toward the stairwells. Jennifer locked the front door. She backed her chair against the wall where she could see the lobby entrance and the elevators. She kept her eyes on the monitors. The figures kept appearing. 4th floor, 9th floor, 14th. Never on camera for more than 2 seconds. Just walking, always in the same direction, always toward the stairs. Jennifer counted 11 different sightings in 5 minutes. Then everything stopped. No more movement. Every floor was still and empty. The police arrived at 3:07 a.m. 2 officers. Jennifer showed them the footage. They went floor by floor, checking every office, every stairwell, every bathroom. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows. All the doors were locked from the inside. But on every single floor, they found the same thing. The stairwell door propped open with a wooden wedge. The officers collected all 15 wedges as evidence. They checked the building access logs, reviewed the camera footage from the past week. Nothing unusual except for tonight. They filed a report and told Jennifer to call immediately if anything else happened. She finished her shift at 6 a.m. and never went back. The building management called her, asking why she didn't show up for her next shift. She told them what happened. They said they'd reviewed the footage and didn't see anything concerning. She asked about the wedges. They said the police never submitted any wedges to evidence. She called the police department. They had no record of a service call to that address on that date. The 2 officers she'd spoken to, no officers by those names worked for Seattle PD. Jennifer moved to Portland 2 weeks later, but before she left, she did some research on the building. Turns out it was built in 1989 on the site of an old apartment complex. The apartment complex burned down in 1987. 15 people died in that fire. They were all found in the stairwells. The fire doors had been chained shut from the outside. That's it for tonight. If these stories kept you up, that's what we do here at SpookFeed. Real stories, real fear. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay safe out there. You never know what's working the night shift with you.